Daniel, first things first. I said there were loads of young people up at the conference. A lot of MPs weren't there. You weren't there.
No, but I was working in the House of Commons because I'm one of the Prime Minister's trade envoys, and I was looking after a delegation this week from overseas. But a
lot of MPs weren't there. It somehow suggests, and maybe this speech has changed it, I don't know, but it somehow suggests that Rishi is not inspiring the parliamentary party.
Oh, I don't think that's right. I think he's bringing discipline back into the parliamentary party. The one thing that we Tory MPs crave for more than anything else is the strong hand of discipline. And
Good Lord, what a quote.
And we were floundering all over the place, unfortunately, over the last period under Liz Truss and the dying days of Boris Johnson. The whole thing was not what we wanted. He is starting to introduce a certain degree of discipline into the parliamentary party. And you can't win an election without discipline.
All right. I just noticed there were many faces I expected to see that weren't there. HS2, you've been a strong supporter of the HS2 project. How do you feel today?
Well, I supported HS2 because Patrick McLaughlin, the Secretary of State for Transport, talked about capacity on the network. We had campaigned for a long time for a direct train service between Shrewsbury and London. We couldn't get it because there was no capacity on the network. So I supported HS2. But I actually appreciate the leadership that Rishi has shown.
He says the facts have changed. He says since the 2010 original conception of the plan that the facts have changed, that a lot more of us work from home, etc. Is he right?
Well, there's something else fundamentally important, which is the equilibrium, the pendulum has swung away from engineers and government towards individuals and communities. And having got the scars on my back on trying to complete a circular road around Shrewsbury, I have seen at first hand the power of the Environment Agency, the power of individuals to prevent infrastructure projects from being brought to fruition. And actually, as a result of HS2 not going ahead, we've been given more money for our project in Shrewsbury, which is very welcome. But, Nigel, this is an important thing. Very easy to blame the government, but what the media should be doing now is a forensic examination of why the costs have gone up so much. And if you empower people to the degree that we have empowered them to block and frustrate and prevent essential infrastructure projects from being built, then ultimately we all pay the price.
That actually extends to house building as well. Stay with me. Now, joining me down the line is Christian Wolmar, railway journalist, historian and former Labour politician. Christian, in some ways, you might be upset that this ambitious new extension to Manchester is not going to be built, and yet a lot more railway infrastructure being built right across the Midlands and the north of England. So, in some ways, isn't this good news for the railways?
Yes. Well, let's come to that in a minute. I've never been a fan, like you, Nigel, I've never been a fan of HS2. But there is a problem here. I don't know if you've been to the Chilterns lately, but there's £28 billion has been spent on this. And another 20 billion will be needed to spend just to get to Birmingham. And we'll end up with what I've called the Acton to Aston shuttle, because the Euston bit, yes, that's been taken out of HS2's hands, but, it's going to be years and years and years before that's actually completed, and it is, as your picture is showing now, an absolute wasteland. I cycle through it a lot and it's a disgrace. So, I think we do have to finish the project between Euston and Birmingham. And then it's not an amazingly useful line. By cutting that last bit off, we've actually reduced the function of it. So in a way, I do recognise that Rishi Sunak and his ministers were between a rock and a hard place. Do you end up spending a lot of money chasing some bad, or do you actually scrap the thing?
Yeah.
They've decided to scrap the thing. Now, on the good news, Nigel, I think you mustn't be fooled by that. And you actually said in your introduction earlier that, you were a bit sceptical about it. And, they've cobbled this lot of projects together without consulting with Network Rail. And, I mean, Network Rail own all the infrastructure. They know all about the projects, and they haven't even talked to them. So they've cobbled this up in a hotel room in Manchester or in some offices in Whitehall without kind of asking, is this one feasible? How much would this cost? The new station in Bradford, well, that was scrapped a few years ago, and nobody, and I've talked to, knows where this new station will go. What does it mean? Now, there's some good projects in there. There's electrification of the North Wales line, which hasn't been put forward before. Great idea. But, in general, it just seems a bunch of projects cobbled together to kind of sugar the pill.
All right, Christian, that's a pretty sceptical response. Daniel Kawczynski, on that, a lot of these are re-promises. We were going to have a Bradford station years ago, then it was scrapped, now it's coming back. There isn't much new here, really, is there?
Well, there's more money for my constituency.
Oh, that's all that matters.
Which is very important. But Nigel, when you are £2.8 trillion in debt, and you will know that we had to borrow $700 billion to get through the pandemic. When you're spending $98 billion a year on debt interest payments, and by the way, the Speaker of the Congress was got rid of because of concerns about their $33 trillion debt. I think it's very welcome news that despite the fact that HS2 has been scrapped, this money will be earmarked for those additional projects, new projects in certain cases, because the budget is very tight at the moment, as you know. And you are a fiscal hawk like I am.
Daniel, if all those... Listen, the scrapping of this HS2 extension, and if the other projects, the tram system in Leeds, and if all of these things were done, it'd be fantastic. Final thought. Did your leader do enough today, do you think, to turn things around?
Well, I believe so, and I sincerely hope so. I think we have 12 months potentially to convince the British people to give us an unprecedented fifth term of office. I'm not convinced by what Sir Keir Starmer is saying. And actually, to be honest with you, those hardcore left Labour MPs are still there. They haven't gone away. And I just feel that the country can't afford a Labour government.
Well, we'll have a good look at Keir Starmer next week.